Winds will diminish this evening with temperatures falling through the 20s.
January 23rd, 1992.
A primetime investigation. Last year, they were heroes. Today, they're homeless.
There are veterans out here today that are dying on the streets out there. Every night. Every day.
Tonight, our hidden cameras follow one veteran on his desperate mission to find shelter.
The VA sent us over. You're listed on this list right here as a shelter.
You'll see what happens when he asks for help from the VA.
I think the VA can be very proud.
What is behind these eyes? The eyes of autistic children cut off from the rest of the world. For years, they've been labeled hostile, retarded. Is it possible someone lives inside who cannot speak? Tonight, the doors of a prison open. Tonight, how the silence was broken.
The things we know about her, the feminism, the glamour, the talent for making people pay attention. Yes! And tonight, Gloria Steinem on the things we don't know about her.
Did you love him?
On men, women, and the movement now feeling the pressure.
When a woman dresses in a sexy way, what is she trying to say?
Well, I don't want to embarrass you, but I was about to say that your pants are at least as tight as mine. We enjoy looking at men's asses.
From ABC News, with anchors Diane Sawyer in New York, Sam Donaldson in Washington, Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace, Judd Rhodes, Jay Shadler, Sylvia Chase, and John Quinones. This is Prime Time.
One movie has millions thinking, dreaming, laughing.
I'm feeling very free, like I've got a little buzz on or something. Does that happen to you?
It doesn't happen to me as much as I'd like.
My name's Mac.
And talking
Simon.
about the way we live now.
All of life's riddles are answered in the movies.
Grand Canyon, rated R, now playing at a theater near you.
I have this dream. I ride 190 horses at once.
Drixoral is. Sudafed isn't. Drixoral is. Contac isn't. Drixoral is the only 12-hour cold medicine you can buy that was once a prescription and is still available in its original prescription strength. Drixoral.
Prime Time. From Washington, Sam Donaldson.
Good evening. Next time you see a homeless person, stop and think for a moment. What if you knew he risked his life for this country? What if you knew he was one of the troops we so proudly supported this time last year? You may not realize it, but after all the welcome home parties, some soldiers from Desert Storm had no place to go. If you thought they could all count on the Veterans Administration, you're wrong. As John Quinones found out, many veterans are now fighting a different kind of battle, a battle to survive on the streets.
You'd never know it by looking at him, but Jesse Jones is a genuine American hero. 20 years ago, Jesse served in Vietnam, where he was wounded twice. He came out of the war as one of its most highly decorated soldiers. His military record shows he was awarded 2 Purple Hearts and the Silver Star for bravery.
I killed more than 30 men in one day, single-handedly by myself, armed with nothing but hand grenades and 45 pistols. 30 men? By myself. They sent a general over to Vietnam, stood me on the hill in front of everybody, and put a medal around my neck.
You're proud of that?
Oh, yes.
A year ago, Jesse was again on the front lines as U.S. troops liberated Kuwait. In fact, the hat he wears today was taken off a dead Iraqi soldier.
And I like to wear it because in Massachusetts this time of year it gets cold.
Jesse says he's needed that kind of protection from the cold because for much of the past year, he's been living on the same streets where 8 months ago he was welcomed.
From Desert Storm, we came home, everybody had a big parade for us. It was a popular war. We won the war.
What happened when the music ended?
The war's gone. It's forgotten. The veterans is forgotten.
Today, Jesse suffers from post-traumatic stress, a psychological disorder caused by his years in combat. Because of that, he's not been able to hold on to a job. He says he's been sleeping in shelters, subways, and banks.
How'd you get in?
What I do is I take my ATM card and stick it in here like this. The door unlocked, pull the door.
Once inside, Jesse finds comfort on a piece of cardboard next to an automatic teller machine.
But you were awarded the Silver Star, which is given for gallantry and bravery beyond the call of duty, right?
Other than the fact of knowing that, you know, that you, as a soldier, you've achieved the highest that you can, other than that, it counts for very little. I mean, it's not going to get you a place to stay. It's not going to get you a meal in the morning.
Jesse is not alone. 1/3 of all the homeless people you see on the streets of America today are veterans. That's about 200,000 people with nowhere to go. Because, they say, the VA, which is responsible for the welfare of all veterans, has virtually ignored them.
The VA spends $32 billion a year on veterans, but only 0.1% of that goes specifically to help the homeless. 2 programs designed to provide housing, jobs, and health care, but they reach only 12,000 vets a year. That leaves 188,000 homeless veterans out in the cold.
I'm not very happy about the fact that I'm standing before your cameras and telling America that I'm homeless.
Meet Fred Barn. He's 33 years old and volunteered for Desert Storm because, he says, the cause was noble.
You know, you had Desert Storm, and now we're into after the storm.
Before Desert Storm, Fred, who says he has no family to turn to, was a college student. He's been looking for work, but in these times of high unemployment, he's had no luck, and now lives in a shelter.
There's no reason why a veteran in this country should be homeless. There's no reason why a veteran in this country should be unemployed or underemployed.
What is it like to be a veteran down on your luck on the streets of America? Primetime decided to find out. In New York last Saturday night, we followed a homeless vet with a hidden camera as he tried to find a place to sleep. First stop, a VA hospital in Manhattan. Increasingly, homeless vets are dropping into these hospitals throughout the country looking for a bed for the night. The administrator on duty here has some bad news. Hospital beds, he says, are for sick patients. There's nothing here for vets who are simply homeless.
You just dump me? I'm no token. You don't have tokens anymore.
This man was sent off into the night. And what about our veteran?
Right now, all I can give you is a list of shelters that we have.
A list of local shelters, the closest one 25 blocks away. Since the VA doesn't provide transportation, no subway or bus tokens, it's a cold walk. The wind chill factor 10 degrees below zero. When our vet arrives at the shelter, he finds the place padlocked, moved to another location. When he arrives at that new location,
the VA sent me down.
He's told it's closed for a long holiday weekend. And besides, the office helps only stranded tourists.
Actually, I got no business coming here then.
No, that's right.
Finally, our vet heads for the last shelter on the list, another 40 blocks away, only to be told this is now a drug counseling center, no longer a shelter.
There's no more shelter.
Do you have, like, so there's nothing here for veterans, right?
No.
It's not a shelter no more. So this is a mistake?
Yes, a mistake.
The end of the night finds our vet right where he began, still walking the cold streets of the city. At the VA hospital where his search for a bed started, we tried to get some answers from spokesman Leo Marinacci.
I'm John Quinones from Primetime. How are you? We came to find out why the VA turns homeless veterans away at night.
Well, we don't turn homeless veterans away.
You give them this list of homeless shelters, and some of these places don't exist anymore.
No, one of the places doesn't exist anymore.
Another place is not even a shelter. It's a detox center.
Well, we gave that information out, and we found that one of the places didn't exist. We updated the list immediately upon finding that out.
What about the folks that had headed out there? What do you tell them?
We do the best that we can.
For homeless vets, the VA's best is not good enough. Experts say their plight will only grow worse as thousands more Desert Storm veterans join the ranks of the homeless thanks to the recession and military cutbacks.
For too many Desert Storm veterans, banners like this have now replaced the welcome home signs. This is a shelter for the homeless in Boston. And despite its military appearance, this refuge is run not by the Armed Forces or the Veterans Administration. It's privately operated by veterans for veterans. Its founders determined to provide a safety net that the U.S. government either cannot or will not provide.
The Marine Corps has a tradition that you don't leave your wounded on the battlefield. These men are wounded. The battlefield is our nation.
Ken Smith is director of the New England Shelter for Homeless Veterans, a center run mostly on charity. 500 veterans pass through here every day, 24 of them from Desert Storm.
Did I expect to see a Desert Storm veteran in 1991? No, but I did. Do I expect to see more now? Yeah, I do. But it doesn't shock me. It shouldn't shock you. There are thousands of homeless veterans in this country. They are the forgotten, the invisible.
Smith was an Army medic in Vietnam, and he runs his shelter like a drill sergeant. No drugs, no alcohol. And within 21 days after they arrive here, each veteran must enroll in school or get a job.
You can go day labor. You can go flip burgers at McDonald's. You can work at the post office doing bulk mail, overnight stuff. You got to do something.
The shelter is a one-stop center for homeless vets, thanks to tons of donated goods. Take a look at the clothing supply room. The vets get the basics here, like a meal, a shower, and a bed, and also a haircut. It's the remaking of an image.
If you stop looking homeless, you stop feeling homeless.
And look to your right.
There's also health care. Bob Donahue says he tried to get an eye exam at the VA and was told he'd have to wait 6 to 8 months. But here at Ken Smith's shelter,
I had an eye appointment within 1 hour of walking in the door.
At the VA, Tom Crossman says he had to wait 4 months for a foot exam. At the New England shelter, they're performed every week.
Really rapid, really quick, instant relief.
There's counseling for alcohol and drug abuse. And perhaps most vital of all, job training.
Computer instruction in a homeless shelter.
These guys are really smart, John. They are homeless. They're not helpless.
He set me up to check out the job situation.
In the last year, the shelter has found work for 800 veterans. They get some interesting referrals.
The VA hospital referred me. A counselor over there referred me to this place here.
Finally, there's the security here, with the guards themselves homeless veterans, making this, on any given night, perhaps the safest shelter in Boston.
This is a homeless veteran helping a homeless veteran. That's different. This is another homeless veteran telling another homeless veteran, you're important, you matter, we care, you can do it. It works.
Why is this such a personal thing for you?
Because I am them. I'm a combat Vietnam veteran. I understand their pain. I have it too. And because it's unconscionable to me to have this man eating from a dumpster and sleeping under a bridge.
I think the VA can be very proud of what it's done for these men and women who are the most deserving.
Dr. Paul Herrera is a medical director at the Veterans Administration in Washington. He says the VA is doing a good job when it comes to homeless vets.
We have 45 homeless chronically mentally ill programs in 26 states.
So you have no programs in half of the states?
We have no programs in half of the states, that's correct.
How can you reach these people then?
Isn't it impressive how much we've already done?
When you hear the Veterans Administration say, we're doing all we can for homeless veterans, what do you say?
I say it's bull. I say it's hogwash.
Jesse Jones says he feels like a walking casualty of war, abandoned by his government. His counselors at the shelter say he desperately needs long-term care for his post-traumatic stress. But so far, they say, the VA has not provided it.
They medicated him, counseled him, and let him go. He's an MIA. He's missing in America.
Me, I'm right near 80% disability from Vietnam and Desert Storm. Mentally, I cannot hold a job.
He's not all there, you know. But you just don't cut him away and leave him alone, you know. Not now. Not in this country. Not to this man.
I sleep in the subway, or either I sleep in the bank. I don't have the money in the bank most of the time. But what I do is
At the VA, we showed Dr. Herrera videotape of Jesse on the streets of Boston.
Pull the door. Get my card. Go right in.
Is this any way to treat an American hero?
No, this is no way to treat an American hero. And to the degree that we know what he needs and we're made aware of it, I agree with you. He belongs in a hospital and we'd be glad to take him.
But what about all the other veterans out there? Those proud heroes of yesterday who are homeless today?
The Desert Storm guy that walks in our door is the most embarrassed and ashamed veteran you've ever seen. He is so ashamed and so embarrassed. He feels that his heart is broken. And I don't think he should be that embarrassed or that ashamed. America should be embarrassed and ashamed.
Ashamed if for no other reason than this. In the last year, 19 veterans died homeless in Boston. 4 of them froze to death.
What do you want?
All thing I want is for these people to realize that after veterans go and fight the war, it's not all over. They still got to live. The veterans out here today that are dying on the streets on there. Every night. Every day.
After we showed the VA pictures of Jesse, they did take an interest in him. We're told he's now in a VA medical facility while they figure out where to send him for long-term treatment. Also, the homeless vet we followed with a hidden camera last weekend had no luck, so we got him a hotel room for the night. Since then, he's been in a private shelter.
When we come back, extraordinary minds trapped in bodies they can't control. Now, for the first time, they're able to share their deepest secrets. The remarkable and controversial breakthrough when Primetime continues.
Both Visa and American Express Gold cards can get you to La Roche-Guyon, one of the prettiest towns in France. But should something go wrong here, only Visa Gold can get you out.
You had to come to France, eh?
Don't start, Marty.
Because La Roche-Guyon's only towing service
No, we're not getting a tow truck. I can get this out.
doesn't take American Express. Visa Gold, delivering what really matters.
Jamal's from.
Honey, that means I eat France.
Oh.
It's everywhere you want to be.
If this were a perfect world, we'd all be driving expensive cars and living on beachfront property. But in the real world, you have to eat. Well, you can eat tuna once in a while. And you have to buy stuff like socks and shoes and CDs. Well, maybe not so many CDs. Fortunately, the people at Isuzu have to buy stuff too. That's why they created the Rodeo, a four-wheel drive vehicle you can afford, and why they'll give you a great deal on a sound system and air conditioning. So now, you can buy more stuff. Oh, we forgot to mention taxes.
Kellogg's Cracked Oat brand tastes like little oatmeal cookies, which means grandmas are spending a lot less time in the kitchen.
This little accelerator right here, and boom, you're gone, okay?
Cracked Oat brand's great oatmeal cookie taste comes from crunchy oats, which are baked up sweet with a touch of brown sugar. So now you can have that delicious cookie taste whenever, which is why grandmas are spending less time making cookies and more time sewing oats. Kellogg's Cracked Oat brand. Oatmeal cookie taste like grandma used to make.
Discover the passion, the power, the one Golden Globe Award winner that is far and away the best movie of the year, The Prince of Tides, rated R, at theaters now.
Yesterday's quarterbacks on this year's Super Bowl. We're talking serious football. Tomorrow, predictions from Jack Kemp and Joe Theismann. And with more than 30 years in jazz, she's got some stories to tell. Abby Lincoln performs on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Tuesday.
To this year's starting right fielder for the Cleveland Indians.
It's the chance of a lifetime.
How long will it be till you get back?
But the price is high.
You cannot let a chance like this go by.
Homefront. Tuesday at 10, 9 Central.
Primetime. Now from New York, Diane Sawyer.
And now a story about hope. For decades, autism has been a dark mystery, a disorder that seems to turn children in on themselves, against the world. It affects about 350,000 people, and for some, there's wild body motion. For others, silent staring. You'll remember the character Dustin Hoffman played in Rain Man with his repetitive phrases and perceptible streaks of brilliance. Well, over the years, every now and then an autistic person would seem to read. A doctor or a parent would insist that autistics could communicate. But by and large, it was always dismissed as an exception in a general sea of hopelessness. Tonight, however, you are going to see something that has changed that. Call it a miracle, call it an awakening. It is a terrifying condition. Autism. The days are spent in an uncontrollable dance, constantly flailing limbs, wandering eyes, inexplicable bursts of laughter or rage. In many cases, the children were born with no sign of illness. Their parents had to watch the darkness descend.
And the speech didn't develop as it does in other children. He'd get a few words, he'd lose them.
Jeff Powell's baby son seemed perfect. Jeff Jr. is now 16 years old.
Every doctor had always said, you have an autistic, retarded son. It's like the doors closed. As he got older, with our daughter, all the doors opened. Excuse me. And with Jeff, all the doors closed.
The doors closed for Lucy Harrison, too. She's now 15.
She began acting badly, strangely, regressing. She was tested in school, and she had a 45 IQ.
She would come up to us and put her hands around our faces and gaze into our eyes very searchingly, and as if she was trying to say, look, I'm in here.
The therapist blamed it on Mrs. Harrison, saying she was a cold, unfeeling mother.
She actually used the term refrigerator mother, which was pretty commonly used in the 40s and the 50s.
Did you believe it?
Yes, I really believed it because I wanted Lucy to be remediable, and I wanted to be able to change and make things better.
That was one of the worst hypotheses that anybody ever developed.
Dr. Doug Bicklin, director of Syracuse University's Special Education Program, says no one knows what causes autism. It could be a virus or a gene. He says over the years, there have always been some mysterious hints about autistic behavior.
There have been 3-year-olds, even 2-year-olds with autism who were observed hoarding books, taking books to bed with them as opposed to taking dolls or teddy bears. And yet this was always quite a mystery. What were these children doing?
And what about Jeff Powell? Why would he inexplicably show up every night during Jeopardy? Experts were sure these children weren't absorbing information, much more reading. After all, this was autism. The children were retarded, had low IQs, were closed off from the world. They seemed to choose hostility, even violence. Ben Lair's face is covered with self-inflicted bruises. Ben's adoptive mother is Sue Lair.
He was really into taking knives, sharp knives, and slicing slices on his arms or on his legs, and not crying, but just watching the blood appear.
Ben Lair, Jeff Powell, Lucy Harrison, all consigned to a kind of purgatory, like Dante's Lost Souls. And then, 2 years ago, something happened that would change their lives. Doug Bicklin heard about experiments in Australia with children who had cerebral palsy. It seemed if someone lightly steadied their hands, they could communicate through typing. And the Australians were convinced it might work for autism, too. Bicklin went over a skeptic and came back a different man.
I came back to the U.S. after that very brief visit, knowing that I had seen something incredible.
Bicklin says he began by reviewing his entire definition of autism. What if it weren't an emotional disorder at all? But those flailing limbs, that repetitive speech, those compulsive tics were simply a disconnection between what the brain wants and the muscles can do.
You lack voluntary action. You can't say what you want to say. You can't physically do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Why would it work to type?
Speaking involves muscles and control of muscles. And in fact, it's a very complex motor activity. This is incredibly simple. We're asking a person to point with one finger and make some selections. And each choice, each movement is only slightly different than the other one. It's about as easy as teaching a person to do this, to eat.
And so Bicklin began training adults called facilitators, training them to provide the lightest possible counterweight on a child's hand, to help isolate a single finger, to see if the child could direct the hand where he or she wanted it to go. And most of all, to see if the experts could be wrong, that inside these autistic bodies, there was someone who had something to say. And what came back was a babble of distinctive, intelligent, desperately eager voices, as if the prison doors had been opened and the prisoners could speak.
We saw a student who was running across his classroom, slamming up against the wall, slamming up against the other wall. And we said, "What's the matter?" And he typed out, "I'm happy."
For instance, remember Ben? Who is the person inside that violent, self-flagellating body? The first day we tried facilitating with him, he couldn't do it.
Come on.
He kept crying out, "Come on, Ben," until he and we gave up. But 2 days later, Ben started spelling out words. Mischievous, observant conversation. He said he's a Democrat and thinks Anita Hill was telling the truth. Ask him what autism is like, and he types out with his sister.
It is excruciatingly lousy.
And what about Lucy, whose first typed sentence was, "Autism is frustrating."
And when I saw that word on the page, that sentence on the page with the word frustrating spelled perfectly, and I just felt like I was looking down into a well, and my daughter was there down at the bottom of the well, and I was seeing her for the first time.
I was a major disbeliever at that point. There's no question about it.
So you just thought the whole thing was some sort of hoax.
I couldn't make any sense out of it.
Lucy's father, Lee Harrison, was finally won over by the persistent communications from his daughter in a stylized, romantic voice all her own.
Before you had facilitation, what was it like?
She complained that her mother takes her into the garden and messes up her fingernails. Fingernails she proudly compares to those of her unmanicured visitor.
They're perfect.
Inside, Lucy is just another teenage girl who worries about friends, clothes, and boys.
As she says, I am like everyone else inside my body. And she was in there 2 feet away from us, and we didn't know she was there.
While teenagers like Lucy were the first to facilitate, it soon turned out they weren't the only ones who could do it. Remember the tiny children who were taking the books to bed? It seems, in fact, they were reading after all, and can type, too. If anything, autistic children may have a heightened capacity for language. Perhaps, the theory goes, because the words are fixed points in their constantly swirling universe. And 3-year-old Timothy is already reading. His classmates barely know the letters of the alphabet, but Timothy's favorite word?
What's your favorite word?
I hope I'm really
Intelligent. Intelligent. The skeptic we're looking, they say, each one of them says, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm smart. For a 3-year-old, I mean, no 3-year-old thinks that way about themselves.
Well, if you're constantly being treated in another way, that's probably the most important issue for you. They will also use big words like intelligent as a way of proving it.
And remember Jeff, with his flapping hands that couldn't hold a pencil, his careening body, those strange noises instead of speech. Bicklin now says Jeff's face can't reflect the real emotions inside. Jeff, here with one of the facilitators in his school, started typing and emerged a poet. It takes a long time to type out these phrases. We're shortening the time so you can hear all he has to say.
Has the typing made a big difference for you?
He said, yes, it has changed my life. Now I can let people know that I am intelligent and I am good with words and I care about people. I love them.
Does your body do things you don't want it to do? Can you tell people?
He said, yes, it does what it wants to. Sometimes I can't help what it does.
We asked Jeff about his averted eyes and how he can type without looking at the letters.
When you're not looking at the keyboard, how do you find the letters?
He told us he can see the letters in his mind and can aim his fingers on an imaginary keyboard.
I find that very difficult to believe. The probability of getting somebody like that to do the things that are claimed, it's just beyond belief.
Not everyone in the research community is ready to celebrate facilitation or overturn decades of scientific conviction about autism. Margot Pryor is an Australian scientist and just one of the community of experts who've been roused to a tempest by Bicklin's research. Pryor says she thinks the facilitators must be producing the answers, even though every facilitator and parent we talked to said these are unequivocally the children's movements and their words.
There's no question in your mind that those words are really Jeff's words.
It doesn't matter what other people think about it. When he sits down and types with me, I know.
Because you know it's his finger and his impulse going to those letters.
There's no question.
If you're the parent of a handicapped child, you will always look for a magic cure. I mean, you are so vulnerable to claims of treatments that do wonderful things.
People say that it must be the teachers guiding. Well, for one thing, I couldn't get this number of teachers all across the country and doing this, guiding children's hands and then saying, no, it's the children. It's really not possible. But I think more to the point, students tell us information we don't have. They tell us what went on over the weekend, who their siblings are. So we have all of these instances where children are telling us things that we just had no way of knowing.
You know, there are some people who don't believe facilitation. They don't think it's for real. What do you say to them?
I fight the implications of fools.
There are now over 800 facilitators all over the country. Bicklin hopes over time, with increased confidence, the students will need less and less facilitation. Already some of them have progressed to just a light touch on the elbow or shoulder. Ask Chris why he works so well with his facilitator. He sends back 5 letters.
T R
What is that? Where was the
U
go first when it started to swell?
S T. Trust.
But for now, it seems enough to know that Lucy Harrison has been doing things she never did before facilitation. Household chores, helping with the laundry, making up her bed. And the girl who was said to have a 45 IQ now reads faster than anyone else in the family, computes numbers like lightning, even beats out everyone guessing a Wheel of Fortune phrase.
Actions speak louder than words.
Ben Lair helps cook lunch and loves a practical joke. Remember how in Rain Man, the autistic Dustin Hoffman could count the toothpicks with astounding accuracy?
A2, A2, A2.
One day, after Ben had seen the movie on TV, his sister knocked over a jar of poppy seeds.
He looks around and he types out something like, I don't know, 53,972. And she looked at him and she went, really? And he types back, no, just kidding.
And Jeff Powell, who was once labeled retarded, excels in poetry, physics, social studies.
What did Jeff have?
True.
One person in the room got it right. Jeff did.
Jeff plans to go to college and study autism and art. He asked me to help him walk down the hall to see some of his paintings. Jeff desperately wants to be part of the world around him.
The moral is that we should be very, very careful about how we judge people. Not being able to speak or not being able to speak correctly is not the same thing as not having something to say.
No one knows what the numbers will be eventually, but Dr. Bicklin says so far, 90% of the children he has worked with in Syracuse have been able to facilitate with their trained facilitators. Finally, one reason there are so many skeptics in the medical community is that Dr. Bicklin refuses to put his students under the rigor and pressure of a clinical test. He says trust is too important for these children. He doesn't want them ever to feel they and their facilitators might be rebuked.
Still ahead, forget about politics and women's liberation. Tonight, a side of Gloria Steinem you've never seen.
Do you need a man in your life to be happy?
Are you talking about sex?
A relationship.
What are you talking about?
Sure, let's talk about sex.
No, not now, actually, not at the moment, but that may change in 20 minutes. Who knows? I mean...
When Primetime continues after this from our ABC stations.
Why are these men listening to this tape? They're sex offenders being reprogrammed so they won't attack again. Plus, when she came back from lunch, her boss sniffed her clothing and she was fired. Why? Find out on 2020 Friday.
News. Weather. Sports. All in the first 10 minutes. Channel 5 has a newscast that won't make you wait. Channel 5, 10 at 10. News, weather, and sports in the first 10 minutes. Are we keeping you up yet?
Only Fashion Floors has DuPont Stainmaster Carpet for $12.99 installed with pad. Sale ends January 31st at Fashion Floors of Iowa.
Used, this book gets used. It is the one that we use. Used, sometimes abused, but still the one that we use. Used, the one we use.
It's the one that gets used. U.S. West Direct.
That's why it's still the one.
It's Normie's Fatal Attraction. Next time on Cheers.
Sorry, Mr. Jackson, if you don't want me to follow you, I can walk in front of you, then you'd have to tell me where you're going all the time.
Over a year ago, we reported on Detroit, a city that's been called the most segregated in America. Sadly, one of our many cities torn apart by poverty, drugs, and violence. Since our story aired, there's been at least one improvement. Dangerous Halloween rituals like this are down. In 1990, there were 141 fires on Devil's Night. Last year, there were only 62. But crime is still a big problem. Detroit now ranks as the 11th worst city in the country, up from 14th. And what about the scandals surrounding Mayor Coleman Young and his administration? This was Young's reaction when Judd Rose confronted him.
Look, man, I have been hounded for 10 goddamn years with allegations, rumors, and not one concrete charge. Now, after 10 years, you get tired of that bull.
But you're police chief?
I wouldn't give a who it is. It's an investigation. There have been no findings.
Just this week, Young's former police chief, William Hart, went on trial for embezzlement, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. He's accused of looting $2.6 million from a fund set up for undercover drug operations.
Primetime will continue in a moment.
I'm home. There you guys are. Hiya, honey. Oh, what's wrong? This is usually your favorite part of the day. Oh, bad headache. Let me help. I'll take the kids. You take a Motrin IB. The doctor says it's the same medicine as in prescription Motrin, but in non-prescription strength. Really works on my headaches. So go relax. I'll take care of Mr. Duck.
Motrin IB, the relief of Motrin in non-prescription strength.
A mistake was made. Okay, we forgot. We overlooked it.
Say you need something sent overnight. There are a few companies you can call, but say you need it Saturday morning, guaranteed. There are two, but only one is so efficient.
Bobby, just give me a couple of minutes.
They get it there on time for far less, which is why to some, there is only one, UPS.
2 minutes, yeah. Let's go. This one. Let's go get them up.
Some say a 1930s fashion-inspired Lincoln Town Car. Perhaps it was simply the spirit of the times. We only know that today, Town Car is the most spacious, most quiet automobile you can own. Lincoln Town Car. What a luxury car should be.
That's a pretty good...
A moment, a conversation. It shouldn't feel any different when you're talking long distance. We think you should be able to call anyone, anywhere, anytime, and still save money. That's why we invented the new AT&T Any Hour Saver plan. We don't think you should have to make lists or watch clocks. $10 for an hour of calls anytime. Then bonus prices of just 11 cents a minute after 5 and on weekends. Because how you talk is your business. Making it more affordable is ours.
Sunday.
Do you know where you're going?
Relive the adventure. Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito.
I'm stealing this.
Romancing the Stones Sunday. Wednesday.
You are not hurt that you were passed over for Johnny Carson's show.
Who wouldn't want to have that job? First of all, she's a good lover.
I would like to thank my husband for giving me the big one. What did you mean?
I meant the big one.
A hot new Barbara Walters special, Wednesday.
For most people in this country, the name Gloria Steinem brings a series of images to mind. Perhaps the first, for most of us, that journalistic gambit in 1963 when she became a Playboy bunny in order to write about it. Then there's the image of Ms., the magazine she helped create and struggled to keep alive. There are the marches, the speeches, the pungent feminist retorts. But as often as we've heard from the public figure, few people knew about the woman herself. The kind of things you're about to find out now as Jay Shadler gets personal, very personal, with Gloria Steinem.
Have you ever flirted with a man to get what you wanted?
I'm sure I have, but it doesn't work. You know, if women could sleep their way to power, there would be a lot more women in power than there are now. It doesn't work.
We are the women that our parents warned us about, and we are proud.
For 2 decades, Gloria is all you'd need to say, and
any feminist worth her Ms. Magazine subscription would know who you were talking about. And if at times this brainy icon of the women's movement seemed a classy contradiction of glamour and guts, so be it.
On the one hand, as a feminist, you've spoken about downplaying cosmetics and style. And on the other hand, you projected this glamorous, sexy image. Mixed signals?
No, the signal is you should be able to do anything you... Well, please. Can we say that on television?
You just did.
But for a woman who always seems so sure of herself, listen to this.
Sometimes when I enter a familiar room or street, I think I see a past self walking toward me.
In a Manhattan studio, Steinem is recording excerpts from her new book, Revolution from Within, which strips away any lingering mask of invincibility.
But lately, I've begun to feel a tenderness, a welling of tears in the back of my throat when I see her.
Having set out to write a book on self-esteem, Steinem discovered she had very little of it herself. Sparked by professional burnout and personal crisis, this architect of modern feminism unearthed some troubling cracks in her own internal scaffolding.
Anne with an E?
This woman who was so completely committed to the women's cause could not commit to herself. Her close friend and feminist comrade in arms, Bella Abzug.
I kept saying to her, you know, maybe you've got to find a way to get out of this so that it isn't going to take the toll it's taken.
You said that to her?
Oh, yes. I'm sure many other people have said that to her. She said, how can I do that?
You substituted the needs of the movement for your own needs?
No, well, they're my needs, too. I mean, I also need to be treated outside like a human being.
But on some scale, you gave to the movement something that you couldn't give to yourself. True?
Yeah, that's true.
Gloria Steinem stopped giving to herself a long time ago, though the trail back to her childhood began with some bright memories along the shore of Clark Lake in Michigan. There was trouble ahead for her family.
And I had a dog named Fritzy.
In a muraled corner of her New York apartment, we revisited her past.
What's this one?
Well, this is a rare photograph that makes us look quite normal, don't you think?
This is Mom?
Yeah, this is my mother and me. I must have been in the 5th grade.
Ruth Steinem had given up a promising newspaper job to follow her husband to Michigan and raise a family. But their marriage ended in failure. Isolated in a rural town, Steinem's mom drifted into deep depression. By the time Gloria was 10, she was playing parent to a mother who was mentally ill.
She was always lying on the couch with her eyes closed, kind of talking to people in another realm, not even a happy other realm, I'm sorry to say. I would sometimes have to sit and hang on to her so that she wouldn't rush outdoors.
But what did that unpredictability and your mother's depression do to you as a child?
It meant I was unmothered or unparented, so I was neglected.
That emotional fallout drove the young girl who had taken care of her mother into becoming a caretaker for the women's movement.
Are we going to win? Yes!
Beginning in the early 1970s, she spearheaded the cause. If women knew she was their ally, men often felt they were her target.
We are made to feel that we are nothing unless we are standing beside a man.
You perceive men to be freer than women, and yet the men
Not
that
all
I
men.
talk to often would say to me that they're not free. They don't feel free at
course not. I
all.
don't
They've
want
got
to become-
mortgages and they've
I
got
don't want-
bosses and all that.
Well, the point of women's movement is not imitation, it's revolution.
In 1972, she gave the revolution a new voice, co-founding Ms. Magazine. With 500,000 subscribers, it became a manifesto for the movement. By the time she turned 50, Steinem's blitzkrieg had helped shape the feminist agenda, but at a high personal cost.
In what way were you showing signs of burnout?
Oh, name it.
Depression?
No, well, yeah, depression, my form of depression, which meant that I was still functioning. You know, if there were an Olympic team for functioning, I'd be right there, right?
We all knew that the Gloria you see is not the Gloria she feels.
Fellow feminist Letty Pograbin has known Steinem for 21 years.
And it always moved me that this person who was so admired and so publicly successful had a kind of sad inner core.
In fact, at 57, Steinem's latest message to the movement is that unless that inner core is repaired, this social revolution will never succeed.
We need this kind of inner strength to go further.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gloria Steinem.
But this new gospel, according to Gloria, has left some women confused. including a few who came to listen to her at this bookstore in London.
Do you mind me being frank with you?
No, you're supposed to be. That's good.
Good. I have a feeling that you're naive and you live an insular life, and you chase causes, and instead of one-to-one relationships.
That observation isn't lost on Steinem, who admits the movement has been her family and other women her closest companions, leaving open the question,
do you need a man in your life to be happy?
Are you talking about sex?
A relationship.
What are you talking about?
Sure, let's talk about sex.
No, not now, actually, not at the moment, but that may change in 20 minutes. Who knows? I mean...
Keep the cameras rolling here, please.
The cameras have been rolling on Steinem's public romances for years. When such a leading feminist chooses a leading man, it's perfect grist for the gossip mill. After all,
this is a woman who never wanted to get married and doesn't want to get married and is happy being unmarried.
So what was Steinem doing with real estate and publishing tycoon Morton Zuckerman? For a feminist who says she was usually attracted to social activists, Mr. Zuckerman wasn't exactly politically correct.
It seemed out of character for you, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Very out of character, right.
Did you love him?
No.
Perhaps not, but with a net worth estimated at $265 million, Zuckerman's lavish life and limousines were a gold-plated refuge for a feminist who longed to be coddled.
It was about me. It was about the state of mind I was in, which was just very tired.
In other words, because you were tired and depressed, that's why you were attracted to Mort Zuckerman?
Because he loves to dance, you know, and I missed having fun.
Certainly you could have found someone else who wanted to dance.
It's not so easy, you know. There aren't too many men who really love to dance.
Did she ever try to explain that relationship to you?
She said it was an obsession.
Steinem eventually replaced Zuckerman's creature comforts with comforts of her own.
This balcony under which we sit was my bed.
Today, her New York apartment is a warmly decorated home, a stark contrast to the long years when it was largely unfurnished, a way station for a woman on the road.
Didn't you want to come back to a place that was warm and
I didn't
homey?
think... No, well, first of all, I hadn't had a home growing up, so I didn't know how to have a home. And secondly, I think that single women kind of feel they're only supposed to make homes for husbands and children.
And what about children?
Are you missing the fact that you were never a mother?
Well, I became a mother in different ways.
Did the movement become your child?
And my mother, too, right? Mm-hmm.
Childless and unmarried, Steinem has always been open to criticism that she's out of touch with the realities of everyday women. Listen again to that bookstore meeting.
How do you say childhood is dreadfully important? You should be with your child because you can give your child self-esteem. How is that supposed to happen? And if we're also to reap the rewards of feminism and have careers and get out there and all those things.
A number of women told me that they felt that your lifestyle had in some ways raised the expectations of what a woman could achieve to such levels, unrealistic levels, that Gloria Steinem could have it all, but the rest of us couldn't.
Well, I'm an example that they can't. I'm not married. I don't have children. You know, of course women can't have it all. And the idea that they could have it all was put forward by the enemies of feminism, never, never, never by feminism.
Of course, feminism never needed much help in finding enemies. Its early militancy shook society, and Steinem says a conservative backlash still keeps equality out of reach.
In the beginning of the movement in the late 60s and early 70s, it was mostly treated with ridicule, bra burners and so on. But once it started to really change the mainstream of the culture, it became a threat.
In light of the fact that so many of the basic women's issues that were hoped to have been achieved by now have not been, do you feel in any way that you've let the movement down?
No. All that's asked of us is that we do the best we can.
If that sounds more like a self-help slogan than her old fiery call to arms, maybe it's because Gloria Steinem and the movement have been growing up.
If you knew then what you know now, how would your life be different?
I would have paced myself.
This is not a surprise. You knew you were going to have to pick up the tab. But then just 6 more people showed up. Not the time to run up against a preset limit on a bank card. That would be embarrassing. But you can handle this. Instead of worrying, you order more wine. The card, the American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
How much insulation do you have in your attic? 3 inches? 6 inches? Well, the Department of Energy recommends R38 for most American homes, which is equivalent to a foot of Owens Corning pink fiberglass. So grab a ruler and measure your attic insulation. Then get rolling. And get a foothold on your energy bills. For more information, call 1-800-GET-PINK.
I have this dream. I ride 190 horses at once.
Hollywood Pictures presents Sean Connery.
I found a cure for the plague of the 20th century, and now I've lost.
He turned his back on civilization only to discover he had the power to save it. Medicine Man, rated PG-13, starts Friday, February 7th.
Next, an Iowa representative says an offer to buy Prairie Meadows is a sham.
Some parents in Indianola want to know why their kids are getting left out in the cold by a daycare shutting its doors.
And Elvis lives, or at least he's got some University of Iowa students all shook up.
Channel 5 News is next.
The big shot, the big star, the big stick, and the big stick. 4 of golf's greatest legends tee off with big money riding on every hole. Join Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Lee Trevino, and Chichi Rodriguez for one of golf's most entertaining weekends. The Senior Skins Game, Saturday on ABC Sports.
Monday, music's biggest stars come out to play as Hammer tears up the stage live. Plus, performances by Whitney Houston, Garth Brooks, and Winona Judd's very first solo appearance. Hammer hosts the award show that's too legit to miss, the American Music Awards, Monday.
Now for a look at one of the stories we'll have for you next week. He was supposed to be a medical genius, but instead some patients say he was a monster.
He lied to me. The man told me I was pregnant, and I was not.
Sylvia Chase confronts the prominent fertility doctor accused of duping couples desperate to have babies.
You want to believe so bad in him after all the letdowns I had had. This man was God.
They say he tricked them about pregnancies and miscarriages, and even inseminated women with his own sperm.
You don't know how many of your children are out there.
That's next week on Primetime. Ted Koppel joins us now with a preview of tonight's Nightline. Ted?
Sam, there are new allegations of sexual misconduct which threaten Bill Clinton's presidential campaign. We'll look at when the private life of a politician should become fair game for the media. Sam?
Thanks, Ted. Don't forget to watch 2020 tomorrow night. I'm Sam Donaldson in Washington. Good night, Diane.
Good night, Sam, and good night to all of you. Join us next Thursday for another edition of Primetime Live.
If you would like a transcript of Primetime, send $5 to 1535 Grand Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203.
Primetime is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
Next time on Cheers.
I want you to know I love you too, Mr. Peterson.
Normie's new secretary has this cute little crush on him. A correction. Make that a cute little case of fatal attraction.
She's following me! Make it stop! Make it stop!
Oh, hey, don't panic, big guy.
It's like she's a zombie love slave.
Because help is on the way.
I get alive when I don't even have to buy her a drink.
It's Cliffy to the rescue. Next time on Cheers.
Thursday, following the Channel 5 News 10 o'clock report.
Attention! Prepare for incoming laughter. On MASH! The